Hi, this is episode 16 of season 3 of my vlog on trying to get strong and lift double body weight in the back squat. So the inevitable question, are you getting closer to double body weight back squat? I think so. So today was a lift that was a bit later in the day for me, so Fridays it seemed to be a bit of a later lift. And the evidence was that I'd gotten stronger. I'd lifted more weight faster. Which is the kind of acid test as to kind of have you gotten stronger or not without having to do a 1RM test. So kind of squiggly line time. Again, this is a really lovely complicated graph, so I'll just try and zoom in a little bit. So the number I was first looking at is this orange bar here. How many times, how many reps can I complete in a set before I hit a 20% cut off in velocity, before I slow down in speed too much. So I've yet again done 10 reps, so that was the kind of the marker. I did it a couple of weeks ago and hadn't repeated it since then. That's now twice, so I would say that's a more consistent measure of improvement. It wasn't just a one-off. I've then repeated that. I kind of forgot down a little bit again, so the next one you can see is the grey line. Hopefully you can see that here. As you can see there, the last few weeks there's been a general trend of that increasing. So today it was above, it was 0.71. So if you look back way back when, kind of as it was coming through the summer, it was back it down somewhere in the kind of mid 0.5s, and now it's 0.7. So that's a significant demonstration in increasing velocity at some maximal loads over 10 repetitions. So it's not how fast I move my heaviest load possible. But it's an evidence of I've gotten stronger and increased capacity. Going down a little further again, this yellow line represents the first 5 repetitions of 120 kilos. So my slowest, those first 5 reps were done at 0.35 meters per second. And in fact, if you can see some of that in that particular week, I can only do 2 repetitions. So I could do 2 repetitions and the average velocity was 0.35. So that's where I was, and that date was, the 7th of September. So getting back into work after the summer, that was kind of probably the lowest point of being with the program. Since I've been doing that consistently, so that's kind of about a month ago now, I've now done that same set, that same kind of attempt for 10 repetitions, and the first 5 reps have now jumped up to over 0.5 meters per second. So I think it was that average of 0.51. And this dotted line represents the smallest worthwhile change. So for me to have said I've made a significant or meaningful increase in velocity, that yellow line has to jump above that. So you can see now that was quite a significant jump above. The blue line underneath is for all 10, and that's less easy to compare because, as you can see from these orange bars, I've not always done 10 repetitions, so it's the overall set. Sometimes that's 6, sometimes that's 5, sometimes that's 10. But again, that's trending on the upward. So again, overall, that is on the up. So that's an increase in strength and an increase in strength capacity. And as somebody mentioned on Twitter this week, Adam mentioned on Twitter this week, sure, the first few reps are more important for max strength than the last few reps, and yes, that is true. Absolutely, it is true. The first few reps are more of a better indication of maximum strength than the last few, but equally, I've always had the mindset on this particular phase of training that it's about building the capacity to tolerate more training, because in the past I've tried to train at higher intensities in the 5s and under and broken quickly. So over the last year, that's really been a very key focus for the 1x20, now the 3x10. That has been the primary focus. That's probably been about 12 months in the making of building this robustness and this capacity to train. So at the moment, I don't have any soft tissue injuries while squatting. I had a bit of a back spasm this week when I was doing a snatch, but that's not squatting. That's something else again. But what I can see here is there's evidence that I've adapted to this part of the program. Now, I've been doing the 3x10 for a good few months now, and I've now hit that threshold. I've seen improvement. I could do another load, and then another load, and another load. And again, there's a point at which kind of go, well, this isn't the main thing anymore. I've got to kind of move towards what is the main thing, which is squatting a heavier load just a single time. So we're going to move on to a new phase of training. We're going to move closer to that, but again, we're still making our way down the list. So we're going to move to Reds Park's 5x5. I went to have a conversation in the gym this morning with some of the guys that I kind of work with on a morning about Reg Park. Who is Reg Park and why do we care about 5x5? So for those who are slightly interested in the history of resistance training and weight training, weightlifting and bodybuilding and those other things that came with weight training, Reg Park was Arnold Schwarzenegger's hero as a child, and he hails from the great city of Leeds. So how could we not, being at Leeds Beckett University and spending all my time in, not do the Reg Park 5x5 program? But I'm going to try to bring that into the modern era, because that came out in the 1950s, and let's be honest, it still works now. Just because it made it pop in the 50s does not mean to say it's any less effective now. We're going to try to flavour that with a bit of velocity-based training. So what we're going to do, so there's 2 workup sets and then 3 heavy work sets. And that would have normally been at 100% of 5 RM. Sorry, I made a mistake here. Which is 1 RM here, it should be 5 RM. So that's my fault for not proofreading this first. So 50% of 5 RM, 75% of 5 RM, and then 90% of 5 RM. Not 5 reps at 90%. For those students of mine who look at this, you'll go, that's clearly wrong, and you'd have failed. I would have failed myself if I'd have done that. So that's a typo on my part. So it's 5 rep max. So rather than maxing out on 5 repetitions, I'm going to hit this kind of 0.3 to 0.4 range. That means I should still be very much working in strength, but I'm not absolutely smoking myself every single set. So that should allow me to accumulate more volume. Less fatigue, more adaptation, and not absolutely hit a brick wall after a couple of weeks of training. Or so I think, and we'll see how it goes. What we'll basically do, rather than having a percentage loss, so lose 10%, 20% of velocity, I'm going to have like a hard floor. So if I go below 0.3, so if any single rep in that set is below 0.3 meters per second, that set's off, cut off, and I can go back and do it again. And that gives me a bit of auto-regulation, it gives me a bit of variability between days. If I'm not feeling it great, I might end up doing like 3 singles. I might end up doing three sets of 1 on a really bad day. I might go like a 5-3-2 or 5-4-3 or whatever the variation is between days, between weeks. But using that velocity as a way of making sure the intensity is high, but I'm not cooking myself in the process. So that's this week. That's the progress. What I need to do now is do another load velocity test to see what my predicted 1 RM would be, and off the back of that I can calculate what my anticipated 5 rep max would be, and then calculate the loads off the back of that. So that will be next week's job. Hopefully I'll be back next time next week and show you some evidence where the data says I've gotten closer to a double bodyweight squat. I won't be there yet, but I've gotten a bit closer, and I can start to plug some numbers into what I'm going to be squatting from now on.